This is The Long Road to Publishing, the podcast where we hear from authors who have traveled a long and bumpy road to publishing their books. Whether you're just starting out on your own writing and publishing journey, or if you're all too aware of the many possible detours along the way, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Eva Langston, author, writing instructor, and creator of Eva's newsletter for writers on Substack. Thank you so much for coming along on the ride. I am so excited to bring you today's episode with author Lindsey Goldstein. Lindsey started out working in the film industry and then went on to work as a physical therapist. She really got serious about her writing career at the age of 40, and her debut novel, Gap Year, is a middle-age coming-of-age story. Lindsey talks about revising Gap Year many, many times. Just go ahead and try to guess how many times. We'll learn in the episode. She also talks about parting ways with an agent who wasn't a good fit for her and signing with a small indie publisher for Gap Year. Before we dive in, a friendly reminder to subscribe to the podcast, tell your friends to subscribe, and if you feel so inclined, take a moment to give The Long Road to Publishing a 5-star rating or a review, because that helps people find the podcast. But no matter what you do, thank you so much for listening. It really means a lot to me. Now, on with the show, which I'm calling If the Agent Doesn't Fit, or Forming a Callus from All the Rejection. Enjoy! Today we have Lindsey Goldstein. Lindsey started her writing career with essays in the New York Times, Modern Love, Caveller, the Chicago Story Press, the Sunlight Press, and others. Recently, she published a short story in the Avenue Journal. Her debut novel, Gap Year, will be published in February 2026, and she is at work on 2 other novels. She lives in Southern California. So welcome to The Long Road to Publishing.
Thank you.
So we are going to talk about your whole journey to get where you are, but you do have this novel coming out in February. So do you want to give us a little pitch?
So it's about Jane, who is a 46-year-old woman. Her only child has recently left the nest. Her husband and she are having some marital difficulties, which is looking like it's probably leading to a split. She's never been happy in her job as a CPA and had always wanted to climb this volcano called Cotopaxi in Ecuador. She had wanted to do it with her husband, but seeing as he's probably on the outs with her, she decides to take a gap year in Ecuador and climb this volcano. But it's also a coming of age story for a middle-aged woman to try to figure out who she is after not having kids at home and no longer being married.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so I have 2 questions. The first is, have you climbed this volcano? Is that why you wrote about it?
No, but I did live for a year in Ecuador and then subsequently 2 summers. I looked at Cotopaxi from a distance, and it was something that I thought about one of the summers that I lived there, but I sadly get a little bit of altitude sickness. So after some friends told me that they just got to base camp and were violently ill, I decided not
Oh,
to. But I do love hiking and I love the outdoors. So yes, in theory, I would love to, but no, I have not.
that's the great thing about writing, is the things that we maybe can't do in real life, we can do through our writing. And I was just going to say, I'm approaching, oh gosh, is it my 44th birthday? So I love the idea of a coming of age novel for middle age, as you're entering this new phase in your life and kind of figuring out who are you now. So I love that. Okay, so now you've got your book deal, but now we're going to go back in time, see how you got here. And I know a lot of writers say they started writing when they were young or they always wanted to be a writer, but when do you feel like you really got serious about writing? Like you were like, I'm going to write a book and get it published.
I did always want to be a writer, but my sister is the writer in the family. I put that in air quotes. So I never thought I could. In college, would look at those creative writing courses with authors that I loved and admired and thought I would love to do that, but never did. And then I got into my late 30s and I started writing essays just for small publications. And when a couple of them started to get published, I went for The Modern Love. When that got picked up, I was about 40, maybe 41, 42. I don't know. Anyhow, I thought very naively, oh, well, if I can do this, surely I can continue to move on with my writing career and write a novel. So that's when I did get serious about trying to write a novel. I did write that first one that I call my starter novel that sits in a drawer, well, sits on my desktop and will never see the light of day. But after that, I had this burning desire to, I actually started writing Gap Year then, so in 2019. And obviously, we're in 2025, so it's been a process. But that was, I would say, in my early 40s.
I love that. I think a lot of listeners will appreciate that it's never too late, you know. So when you wrote this drawer novel, did you realize as soon as you wrote it, like, oh, I need to try again? Or
I don't want to say stupidly, I don't want to put myself down, but I guess again, naively, queried agents with zero clue. Zero. I had no idea how to write a query letter. I looked it up online. I took some advice from various people. I did look at successful query letters. I still had no idea. I probably sent to completely wrong agents. And this, by the way, was a YA novel, or actually, it was more new adult. And I failed miserably. I think I got like 50 rejections and realized, okay, I think I need to take this more seriously and go back to the drawing board.
yeah, so when you kind of realized, oh, maybe this isn't quite what it needs to be, did you immediately start trying to write another novel? Did you try to revise that one? Did you take classes?
We were kind of getting into the height of COVID, so I did start doing more virtual classes. I did a couple of virtual conferences and did start learning about craft. And outlining, and because I was a pantser, so I started doing more plotting. I mean, I it was more loose outlining, but that I found really helped me, just to have that roadmap of where I was going to go. And so, I mean, Gap Year has probably been revised no fewer than 30 times. It was a much more of a hard work than the first one, where I didn't really let anyone read it. I didn't have beta readers. So it was a completely different process.
Yeah, I know so many people, myself included, you have to write that first kind of quote unquote bad novel, but it does prove that you wrote an entire manuscript and then you're like, okay, now I can do it again. I can do it better. I can revise, I can shape. Do you feel like any of the classes or conferences that you went to, are there any that you would definitely recommend that you feel like were the most helpful?
Well, I would say that in person, like, so the only one I've gone to in person was through the Women's Fiction Writers group.
Association, yeah.
So that, because you're in classes all day, that was very helpful to me, not just from a writing standpoint, but understanding marketing and publicity and all of that. But I did do a lot of the Writer's Digest virtual
Oh,
conferences, and
yeah. I know they have a lot of them. So,
I did get a lot out of that. The other thing I will say that I did do was join, I'm not affiliated with them anymore, but I joined Pitch to Published.
and tell
And
me what that is. Pitch to publish.
it's an online writers group. I don't know how many members, there's a lot of members from all over the world. And I'm blanking on her last name. Her first name is Kathy. I'm sure we can look it up and find her,
Yeah.
but it's a well-known pitch to publish. P2P is the kind of tag. And I don't want to be her spokesperson, but I did find it very helpful because she brought agents in. Different writers' query letters were chosen and picked apart by these agents. And so you could really see what they did well, what they didn't do well. And I learned a ton from that of how to construct a query letter. And then in addition to that, like I said, some of these Writer's Digest groups, I submitted pages, like first 10 pages plus query letter to agents. And they tore my stuff apart, which really helped me to see how to get a reader engaged right away from that first page, hopefully. And again, work on that query letter, which is really hard.
Yeah, it really is. It really is hard to distill your whole novel into, something that's specific, something that will make people want to read it. So, okay, so this is all really good because, you took the classes, you went to the conferences, you revised 30 times, because I think people need to know like this is what it takes. And then at some point, I guess you felt like the manuscript was ready and then you decided to query it.
I did query it in two different, you know what, I should back up. So I did write another manuscript prior to that that I just forgot about because I'm actually revising that one now and making it completely different per the notes that I did get from agents then. And it was women's fiction. I obviously had gotten better at writing a query letter because I got like 6 full requests right away, but I was rejected across the board. Mainly, people didn't like my main character. And I understand why. And I'm hopefully addressing that in this new version. But with Gap Year, I did submit in what I had learned from Pitch to Publish, which I don't know now if I necessarily agree with that, especially the way that things are today with wait times from
Mhm.
agents, is I would do batches. So like 10 to 15, wait and see. And I did get some full requests. I wound up not getting anybody interested after reading 50, 100 pages for various reasons. Did more rewriting. I did engage various editors that I paid to then come back and help me revise some more. I got more beta readers. It's another thing is I've learned to really lean on certain beta readers so that I trust. And then did another wave, and then I wound up doing one of those pitch fests like on Twitter.
Hmm.
And that was how I got my agent. So she liked my pitch. And by the way, I did that. I didn't even know about it till the day before.
Oh, wow.
And it was Joy Pit, which I don't even know if they have anymore.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I'll have to look and see if well, a lot of them have moved off Twitter to like Blue Sky
Right.
or they'll have like their own websites and things. So, yeah, I found my second agent through a Twitter pitch contest as well.
Oh,
Like I
okay.
wouldn't have known to query her, but she had liked my pitch. Okay, so she liked your pitch on Twitter and
Hmm.
so then you queried her
I did.
and
And
yeah.
she right away asked for the full. And then it wasn't totally clear to me when she emailed me and said, I love this, but then she had a bunch of notes. And so I thought, okay. And then she said, but I'd like to talk to you. So I thought it was going to be an R&R. And we're talking, and then she said, oh, I don't know if I made myself clear. This is an offer, I'm calling to offer. And I said, oh. I think my reaction was stilted because I was surprised.
Yeah.
So I wound up signing with her. She was great in many ways. She was very editorial. So actually, I credit her with the fact that Gap Year got so much better. She really pushed me to, as they say, kill your darlings and throw out like the first couple chapters. And I rewrote them page one, which I think made it a much stronger book. But ultimately, it died on submission. But we did revise for about 8 months. And I kept thinking, when is this gonna, when are we gonna send this out? We got really good feedback from a lot of editors, and then some even suggested different imprints to pitch that they thought might be more appropriate. But ultimately, I feel like we only went to about 16 editors, and then that was it. She didn't feel like she wanted to send it more widely.
Interesting. So, okay, I want to just kind of unpack all of this. So you signed with her after you thought she was calling to talk to you about a revise and resubmit, and then she's
Yes,
like, "No, no, I want to sign you, but here are all of these changes." And
yes.
did you feel like you were on board with kind of her vision and the changes that she wanted you to make? I know you said you felt like they did make the book stronger.
I did. One thing we had a conversation about is she would go in and rewrite in her voice. And her voice is nothing like my voice. So that was something that I had a bone to pick with her about that. Just, I want to keep it consistent in my voice. So then I would go and rewrite what she had rewritten or just revert to the old document. But her plot notes, anything like that, especially like grammatical things, I did defer to her. And overall, she did help me make it a lot stronger.
That's interesting because I do feel like agents are getting more editorial, I think,
Hmm.
because the competition is so stiff once you're out on submission. They really want everything to be as good as it can get. But then you're like, you don't know when you sign with an agent if you're going to jive with their editorial style. Like it's interesting. She was going and like literally line editing for you.
She really did. And it wasn't
So
just me, because I'm now good friends with one of her other ex-clients. And she did the same thing. We would talk about it, that
yeah. So, okay, so then you went out on submission. It didn't sell, but you felt kind of like, did we really send it to everybody we could have sent it to? So then what happened then?
so then I she had encouraged me to write something else. So I did. And it was a very strange juxtaposition, I would say, of Gap Year to this other manuscript, in that I sent it to her and she wrote back, I don't know, a couple months later and said, "Yeah, I love it. Let's send it out." Like, and I kept,
What?
and so I felt not, I don't want to say insecure, but I guess it was insecure. Like, wait a minute, this last one, we tore apart line by line. And so I wasn't sure if she just wasn't as invested in it,
Hmm.
or if she really felt like it was that much better. And she kept saying, "Your writing has improved so much, blah, blah, blah." But I kept saying, "But I feel like it still needs something, and I had also paid editors on this one. I had had it beta read. I had gotten a lot of feedback. I had addressed their notes. One thing I've really gotten very good at is taking criticism and hopefully implementing the suggestions. Yeah, so I thought that was odd that she had nothing. The reason why I didn't want to blow my chance with this one if it wasn't ready. I would rather have revised more than send it out when it wasn't ready.
Right, right. Because you would think, I mean, it does make sense that you learned a lot from that first experience and then your writing got better and you, as you said, you had beta readers, but you would think there would be at least a little bit of notes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We wound up going out with that, but just to a handful. And when she sent me the list, I also looked up all of the places that she had suggested. And most of them, I felt like this is not what they do. This would not be
Hmm.
right for their list. So I started asking her about it. Anyway, she's a very nice person. She's a good agent, I'm sure, for some of her authors. But for me, ultimately, the communication didn't work.
Hmm.
I started to feel like the nagging child because I had a lot of questions, and I also wanted input with, what about these editors? What do you, and it wasn't that I was saying you have to send it to them. It was more, what do you think? What do you think about
Right.
these editors? Because I was doing research of my own and I was talking to other writer friends who were saying, "Oh, you should send to this person, whatever." And so I would just ask her, and she just started not responding. And then she would get upset with me that I would pester and, like, "You're trying to do my job for me." And so I finally said to her, I don't think this is working anymore. I did, review my contract and made sure that everything was kosher as far as what I could and could not do. And as far as I could tell, and I had a lawyer friend review it, I was free and clear, at least with Gap Year, to do with as I pleased. And so I sent it to Egret Lake Books, and that was the only place I sent it, because she responded within a week, I would say. And she said, "I love this." I said, "Oh." I had looked up, I mean, she's a fairly new small press, but I looked up her other books and other authors, and she had really nice covers. It looked like they were doing well on Goodreads and Amazon. And when after I had a Zoom call with her, I had a good feeling about her. So I signed a contract with her for Gap Year.
Yay. So the book that was revised many, many times and died on submission is now going to be published in February.
Yes.
So the one that you wrote kind of when you were still with your agent that she had drawn up the list of 5 editors, did that one ever go on submission?
So it went to those few people, and I think we got 4 passes. They mostly said this is not right for my list, which is what I suspected. And then I asked her to withdraw the other ones. So it didn't really go out. And then, to be honest, I wound up submitting that to agents, and I got the same feedback from 2 agents who had requested either a partial or full. And then I had my writer friend, who's the other ex-client, beta read it in detail for me, and her notes also aligned with that. So I did a very almost a page one rewrite on it. And so I have been submitting that to I did show it to Egret Lake, and she said this was not right for her list. So I felt free to do with it again as I want. So I've been submitting that to agents and other small or mid-sized presses that don't require agents to see what happens with that. And then, there always has to be something else. So that's why I said I'm rewriting the other manuscript that had a lot of fulls requested, but ultimately I didn't land an agent with that one.
So you've got a lot of projects going on,
I do.
basically. But that's nice. And they're all in kind of different stages, right? So, well, I guess one question I have is you said that Egret Lake was the only place you submitted to because you submitted to them and you heard back right away. What drew you to submit to them first?
They had been on my list for my agent to send to, and I don't know what really happened there. I don't think Gap Year was ever sent to her. So right away, I thought, okay, well, she was on my list. I know it hasn't been sent to her. So I went ahead. I didn't think based on my contract I could send my latest one anywhere because I think there's a 30-day window or something like that. So I sent Gap Year there, and that was that.
And it worked out.
It worked out.
So, okay. So then you've got your book coming out with, and you said a smaller kind of indie press, right?
Yes. Yep.
Got your book coming out with a smaller indie press. You are currently shopping a manuscript to agents and also smaller presses, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, if you do get another agent interested, are there questions you think you would ask them to try to make sure that they are a good fit for you?
I think the biggest thing is not only asking them what their communication style is, but also not being afraid to ask for what I need. I don't think I need a lot of hand holding from an agent. I trust that they know how to do their job, but I do need, let's say, and this started with my last agent, she would give me weekly, bi-weekly updates, and then that just stopped. So I liked that. I liked even if it's monthly. And I'm on a lot of writers' Facebook groups, and I read how they communicate with their agents. So I'm pulling what I think would work for me. And something that a few people have mentioned is just they have like a Google Doc. And this is something I do, by the way, with the small press that I'm working with. We have a shared Google Doc. We can both see what needs to be done, check off the things that have been done. And so something like that with an agent when we go on submission, who has it been sent to, any updates? So that way, I don't expect someone to call me all the time or even email me all the time. But if I know I can just log in there and see what's happening, that would make me feel good.
Yeah. So I've had 2 books die on submission. And like the submission, I know with my first one, my agent was like, okay, I'm going to email you with an update every Friday. But then it was on submission for like a year. And like at a certain point, it's like, okay, an email that's just like no news I don't
Right.
really need that. And she would send me like her table of like who it's been sent to, did they confirm receipt, is their response, if any. But now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, she should just totally put that in a Google Doc. I'm going to suggest it to her. So I don't know. It is interesting to hear how different people communicate with their agents. And you never want to feel like you're a nag, right? You want to have an agent where you feel like you can ask the questions and give suggestions and not feel like they think you're annoying.
Yeah, I felt like this wasn't a partnership, and I was afraid to ruffle her feathers or ask for what my needs were. And I've learned that's silly. You know, we're adults. This is a professional relationship, and I should be able to have my input heard. I mean, I don't think I was asking for anything outrageous. So next time around, I would be less afraid.
I like that. That's good. Was there ever a time in this process where you kind of felt like giving up or where you felt like maybe I need to pivot and try something different?
When you say this process, what
Just kind of trying to get a book published, writing manuscripts, querying, just the whole
I don't think
journey.
I've ever felt like giving up. I have taken breaks, and I see the big picture of life. So my day job is I'm a physical therapist, and I work mainly with patients who are 80 and older. And I don't know, sometimes you might see my Substack posts, but they tell me all their stories about their life. And so I see the big picture of the things to sweat and not to sweat. So I think taking breaks from the process are healthy, but ultimately, I love writing and it makes me happy. And, you know, the essays that I've published and then the reactions I get from people that I relate to this or this spurred a memory or whatever it is, it just makes me feel connected to other people that I maybe know or I don't know. And it's a nice feeling. So I don't think I'll ever give up, but I don't, at the end of the day, have a tremendous amount of time for writing because I work, I have two kids. So the hours I do get, I really relish.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that is just really good for everybody to remember is enjoying the process of writing itself because there's so much else that's out of your control.
Exactly. And sometimes
Um,
I even just read things to my 14-year-old daughter to see her laugh, or even that's rewarding.
do you think your kids will read this novel that's coming out, Gap Year?
Oh, my daughter already, well, I was informed that I'm to dedicate it to her. Um, and yes, she said not only will she read it, but she's like a little mini publicist. She's at school, which I'm not even sure this book is appropriate for her age group, but she's pumping her friends that they have to buy this book and read it, and then their mothers need to read it. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah, sure. Why not?
if there's a closed door sex scene, don't worry about it.
I always feel like, it just goes over their head if they're not ready for it, right? Do you have any plans? I know it's a ways in the future, it's not till February, but do you have any plans for your book launch or
So that's part of the Google spreadsheet with Egret Lake is marketing, publicity. But from my end, book clubs, I've been already talking to various book clubs that I know about through my kids' school or friends or relatives and making sure that they're willing to read my book. And I would be happy to either Zoom in or come in person if I can. Podcasts.
Yep.
I definitely want to line up as many of those as I can. And then, yes, I would love to have a book launch party. I already have started researching. I would like to have it at a bookstore, but an independent bookstore.
I don't know. I guess my last or maybe my next to last question is there anything that has surprised you from when you first started writing that first drawer manuscript to now, either good or bad about the writing process or the publishing process?
How hard it is. It's hard. I had no idea how hard it is to A, make a very good book, just from that inception of an idea to getting it down, that middle part, making sure that people want to get through that and get to the end. I was surprised by how, I mean, I'm sure it's a product of the time we're in, but how much information there is out there. And, there's so many places you can go for help. And I've also been surprised by how supportive the writing community is. And again, I think this has a lot to do with social media and the internet. I don't know what people did back in the day to find their community, but it's been, the fact that strangers will support you and encourage you, and you have the ability to do the same with them. It's really nice because, as you know, you're a writer, you write in isolation and you feel like you're in your own little world. But I've never actually felt that way because somebody is a quick message away.
You mentioned you have some beta readers, and where did you find your beta readers? Are these people you met online?
So some of them have been, but other writers that either were with my agent or currently that we've exchanged books, and I've learned that they have good feedback. I also did another virtual conference through the Jewish Book Council and met a few. Well, I opted in to, it was kind of a once a week for 4 weeks writing group. And then they gave us the option of exchanging emails at the end. And so there were a few women who seemed like they were on the same page. So we now meet every 2 to 4 weeks and exchange material as we go. So they're always willing to read. So I've started accumulating. I didn't used to
Yeah.
have any beta readers, but I have learned that you can't really ask family members.
Oh no, definitely not.
I used to. I used to ask my husband, and then I would get really angry when I would look over and see him reading something else. And my sister, who has, a double MFA and a PhD in English, I realized she's good for like 10 pages, but she's very busy. So I can't ask her for a full manuscript. So it's just been figuring out who seems to have the similar taste in different, like I said, conferences or online.
Yeah, and I mean, it is kind of a process just to find the right beta readers because I always recommend to people if you're trying to find a beta reader, like swap the first 20 or 30 pages with them first and see, first of all, see what their feedback is like for you and do you find it helpful? And then see what their writing is like and do you feel like you can read a whole manuscript of theirs and give feedback and or is it a genre you feel comfortable giving feedback with? There's so many things to like kind of make sure that it's a good fit. But also to your point, it really is true that the writing community and the writing community online is so supportive and there are people who are willing to help you, for free and support
Yeah.
you. And so, yeah, it just takes some time, I think, to find the right people.
I will say it also takes some trust.
Yeah.
I mean, the world is a crazy place, so you never know, and you're sort of trusting that this will be a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Well, and also that's why I always say like don't send the whole manuscript,
Yeah.
just a little bit, see how it goes. Well, you maybe have already given us some tips, but I do end every episode with a tip for the road. What is your tip for the road?
I think my biggest tip is, I mean, we all know, we all hear it. You will get so much rejection. I mean, so much that it's hard to swallow. But what I would say is take the any rejection you get, if it comes with feedback, take what is helpful to you and forget the rest. I mean, there's really, you can't be everybody's cup of tea. And this has been hard for me to learn, but I have. I think having started out my working career in the film industry, that was like my appetizer of rejection. And now this is like the entree. I don't know what dessert will be, but my sister constantly commends me, like, because I always say to her, you really need to write something and put it out there, even an essay, because she's a very good writer. But she said, I hate rejection. I said, I'll just get over it. You're going to have it. Just know that you're going to have it. But there will be people that reject you with good feedback, and listen to that feedback, especially if you, like I said, with this last manuscript, at first I was reluctant to rework it. And then I saw the same feedback 3 times and I thought, okay, they're being nice about it. They're saying no, but they're being nice about it. And they're telling me what I need to do to make it better. So I'm going to listen to that and let that guide me.
Yeah, rejection is like an unpleasant gift, right? because it really can help you in the long run. And I think too, you sort of alluded to this, but like the best rejection or the best kind of feedback is either that feedback that deep down inside you already kind of knew, right? And it like resonates with you because you're like, oh yeah, I do like I don't want to do it, but I know that's right in my
Yes.
heart. Or like you said, if you keep getting the same feedback from multiple people, then you're like, okay, this must be something because multiple people are saying it.
Yes.
And then yeah, and then the feedback that doesn't resonate with you, then you can just kind of move along. So,
Especially one thing that was really hard for me at first was when people would say they didn't like my voice. I thought, well, gee, I don't know what to do about that because this is how I write. And anything you read, I have a kind of a conversational style of writing, and some people love it. They say it's so accessible and it's so easy to read and helps me to relate. And then there's other people who say they hate it. And like I said, at first that was like a knife to the heart, but what am I going to do about it? Nothing.
yeah, you can't, like you said, you can't please everyone. There will be people
No.
who like your voice and your book is for them.
And I have to remind myself, like you said, I read constantly. And I used to be one of those people who I could not, even if I hated a book, I had to finish it. I felt like I had to. And now that, I'm middle-aged, I think, okay, I don't have time for this. I'm not enjoying this book. I will put it down and move on to the next one. And then I oftentimes will wonder, what did people like about this book? So I'll go and read reviews, and I so don't agree with those reviews at all. And you realize how subjective this is.
Sorry, now I have more questions for you because I want to go back. You said you started your career in the film industry. You gotta say more about that.
Let's see. So I graduated with a degree in anthropology, decided I want to be a veterinarian, did a post-baccalaureate for 2 years, and realized my favorite thing in the world was storytelling, but in the form of a movie. I decided to move to LA and get a job in the film industry. So I started, as everyone does, working for creative, well, not always creative artist agency, but working for an agent. And I really want to be a producer. I love developing stories with writers. And so I moved on from there and got a job working for a producer on the Warner Brothers lot. So I loved, like I said, developing ideas with writers. But part of me kept thinking, why don't I just write this myself? I knew nothing about screenwriting, but I had a friend who was a writer and was looking for a partner. And I said, can I partner with you? Because I was always the idea person, and she was good at helping me learn how to screenwrite. So we started writing together, and then we did get an agent. Um,
I can't believe you left all of this out of the story originally, but go ahead.
but we never sold well, we almost sold a script. We did get an indie producer, and it was so exciting because it was these two women. They wanted our script. We had a legal contract that we were going back and forth with lawyers, and they invited us to go to the Independent Film Festival in LA. And so we went with them, and they were showing us around. Like, we were in our 20s, and like they're cute little, they called us their baby writers, and super exciting. Met a lot of famous people. And ultimately the contract fell apart, and that didn't see the light of day. I will say, strangely, a movie came out about 5 to 8 years later. And I kid you not, there are certain lines that we wrote. The movie is exactly our manuscript, just a little tweaked, but there are certain lines that I swear to you, I wrote. And everyone I know, because a lot of people had read the script, had called me, said, Lindsey, that's your movie. And I said, I know, but what am I going to do? There's nothing I can do. So I think it somehow made it, and like we kind of did some research, and there is a way that it got into someone's head, but whatever, that's fine.
Oh
Um,
my goodness. Oh wow. Well, this
um,
is this is fodder for another novel that you can write about like people stealing each other's scripts in Hollywood or something.
I think it happened. I actually talked to someone who used to be an agent at CAA, and he said, this happens all the time, but there's no good way to prove it. So he said, just let it go.
Oh my gosh. And you
But
seem really chill about it too. You don't seem upset about it.
but ultimately I wound up leaving the film industry because I decided this is somewhat sad, but as a female, it's really hard, I think, as a female to have a balanced life and make it in the film industry. And it was a decision that I came to that, I felt like a lot of what I did was almost like dating, because in order to pitch my ideas and hear other people's ideas and be in the know about which scripts were hot, I had to constantly be going out and generally with men. And you always felt like you were on a date. And
Mm,
I didn't like that aspect of the industry. And there's a lot of stereotypes that are true. And,
hmm.
but the biggest thing for me was I thought, I'm not going to have a balanced life and be a super successful female producer, at least from my perception. So I decided, as they say, go in another direction.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's
And
very interesting though.
but storytelling clearly stuck with me, and I thought, well, I'll do it in a just a different
Yeah.
medium of writing a book instead of film.
Do you think there's more or less or the same amount of rejection in the book publishing industry versus Hollywood?
I feel like the rejection is different in Hollywood because a lot of it is face to face. I think it's based on I mean, it really is, and I almost sure it still is based on who you know. Whereas in the book world, I'm sure that could help, but ultimately you have to have a good product.
Mm,
And yes, if you know the right people to help you market that product, great. But there's a way in if you have a good product. That isn't always the case in the film industry. And I mean, you see the same people making the same movies, and I'm sure all of the other people will tell you how hard it is to get in because they don't know the right people. So the rejection is different, but it's probably equal as far as the amount of rejection you get.
yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of closed doors.
Yeah. I think you have to have a thick skin either way.
And that is something, I mean, I formed a callus working in that industry.
Well, and it seems like also in your writing life, you have learned how to handle rejection and take it for what it is and take what you need from it. So that's great.
Absolutely.
Well, it has been so amazing to have you on the podcast and to tell us your journey. I hope everyone will go and get your book in February and find you in all the places. We'll link to your Substack and your website and everything in the show notes. So, yeah, it's been great
Thank
having
you
you.
so much. This has been so much fun.
The Long Road to Publishing is produced and edited by me, Eva Langston, and the intro and outro music comes from the artist Sound Roll on Upbeat. You can find me online on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Substack with the handle Eva Langston. Even better, find my newsletter for writers at evalangston.substack.com and feel free to send me an email. The podcast address is longroad.pub@gmail.com. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and I'll be back soon with more stories about the long and winding path to publishing and more tips for the road.